So the first feedback I want to talk about here is from a candidate who landed the job as a senior analyst. And he also recommended one of his friends using this to land the job as a software developer. During my virtual interview, I shared my screen and showed a live version of my project to a couple of my interviewers and was able to land a full-time job. So being able to showcase at least one project that you have worked on, which is relevant to the position during the virtual on-site interviews, is something you might want to consider here. Next piece of feedback comes from Nicole, who's thanking me for the video that I had posted, namely the 35 most commonly asked questions in Amazon interviews. And this is, a quick reference that these lists of commonly asked questions actually work, and there's even a newer one than this version. So just quickly, another reference on the same video, 35 most commonly asked questions. As I just said, there's a newer one, but even more interestingly, using my videos and the STAR method, it's reportedly all you should need for a level 5 or 4 at Amazon. So I really do believe that there's not much more than this. You shouldn't get any more advanced than the information I have in this video, especially for these types of roles. So I also thought you'd find this one interesting. Another interesting piece of advice here is, for me, completing the story with quantifiable information, preparing the stories as much as you can, very important. So the stories are really, really important, and of course, using quantifiable information wherever possible. Next is a behavior that I wanted to highlight here, namely, Dan, I'm currently interviewing for a senior leader role at AWS. Is it appropriate to call out something that hasn't been done well by AWS, in my opinion, and recommend an alternative in the interview process, or is that too forward? So notice here, my answer was, why would you criticize that company in the first place? I mean, criticizing your employer is a very dangerous technique. And he actually agreed with that. And luckily, it was a successful outcome. I got the role, and we actually talked about it quite a bit. Framing it the right way was definitely important, and they were very receptive to it. We discussed alternatives and had a great brainstorming sessions. Point of views were exchanged, no one got defensive, and we had a great time through the entire process. Looking forward to working with the team. So notice here, having backbone is essential during a high quality job interview. I definitely recommend it, but framing it the right way is very important. Next feedback here is from Francesco, and he said that he advises other candidates to spend at least 3 weeks preparing for the interview with 15 to 20 past experiences. Choose wisely your past experiences and check my videos in order to find examples of questions, and most important, to get the suggestions that I share. Prepare the answers by repeating at loud voice over and over until you feel confident and you remember all the important points. During the interview, keep calm and listen the questions carefully, and ask for clarification if you don't get the question or if you don't have a matching experience to tell. And this applies particularly if English is not your first language. Next feedback comes from Tyler. One thing that set me apart from other candidates is that I invested in a drawing tablet. This made my whiteboarding more efficient and legible. Drawing tablets are expensive, but hey, you might as well drop $150 if you are expecting a 6-figure salary. Next feedback comes from Nikesh, who has landed an SD1 offer with Amazon. And I have done about 4 final round interviews and got rejected from each one. I think what made the difference this time was that I took the behavioral portion as seriously as the technical. I followed your advice and pre-compiled answers beforehand. I think this is a 100 must, otherwise you will get caught like a deer in the headlights. Another thing I did was to practice with a friend, and I think this is also 100% a must. I wrote about 5 stories for work and centered each around a couple of Amazon's principles that could be twisted to answer multiple questions. Now remember, this is an SD1, so 5 stories. Yeah, I guess you could get away with that as well. If you are a developer and do not talk to customers, be upfront and let the interviewer know this is the policy of the company. They will 100% understand. They won't dock points and ask you questions related to talking to customers. I was always upfront with the interviewer and made it clear I used the same story before I was going to highlight different things. Right? So keep this in mind. It's very, very important as well, especially for very junior roles. 3 out of 4 rounds consisted of behavioral portion. 1 was a system design interview. Now, to be noted that for technical roles, the balance tries to be around 50-50 between technical and behavioral as well. Another quick note I wanted to bring to your attention here is to consume content about what mistakes to avoid during the Amazon interview. And here's an example of a candidate who actually landed an offer, and he found this particularly useful. Another very quick piece of advice here is to ensure that you have examples from experiences that will resonate, and ensure that you are receiving feedback on the answer that you have prepared. Partner, friend, or coach. I also have free role play service if you want, but getting feedback is critical. This is something I found important to highlight as well. Next feedback is from a successful candidate at Amazon India, and his advice is basically, I think what helped me was I prepared a list of possible answers in star format for all the possible questions under the leadership principles. The focus of the answers was to explain the actions that I took, their results, and the key lesson learned from my experiences, and what could have been done well. It was important to talk about my contribution rather than the contribution of the team. The last thing I would like to mention is whenever you are diving deep, it's important to focus on your experiences which would be interesting to the recruiters. So reading the job description and finding out an experience which is relevant to the profile offered would improve the impact of the discussion. Next feedback I wanted to highlight here was from a successful candidate with Facebook. And basically her advice is sharpen skills by preparing really well, make lots of notes, take notes on all prospective questions from the coaching videos, prepare 3 to 5 answers for each question in star formats, use metrics and numbers to quantify your results and achievements in your answers, practice, and during the interviews, think and articulate clearly, stay positive, and be interactive. I would recommend to not prepare fake answers. Some people do that. The interviewer is going to dig deeper into each of your answers. Fang interviewers always do it, and then it may show up as a weak or fake answer. So take a lot of time to think deep into your work experience and come up with the great valid examples. I had an Amazon interview in February of this year, which I was not able to clear. Ever since that, I have been watching your videos to prepare, and after 7 months and 12 rounds of interviews for 2 different roles, I finally got the offer from Amazon Luxembourg for business intelligence engineer. So as you can see here, in certain cases, it very much pays off to prepare for months to do well with these types of interviews. The main thing is the customer obsession. You really need a good number of times in star format that you went above and beyond. So I had a sheet of paper, I wrote as many as I could so they might fit the questions asked. The leadership principles are important, study them. I also watched Amazon videos from Amazon themselves. Really get into the cult of Amazon. The culture is important. Show how you care for customers, as in also team members, associates, managers. Showing this and knowing it seemed to really help. Thanks again for the videos, are very helpful.